Every drink has a story. Every shift has a moment that sticks with you. Good, bad, or completely insane, behind the laughter, the chaos, and the clinking of the glasses, that's where the real stories live. This is Bartender Bangaz, where we pour out the truth straight. No chaser. What's up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Bartender Bangaz. I'm your host, Mark the Shark, aka Schmark, and this week we are keeping it in Fire Island, New York, Ocean Beach, my hometown, and we are at one of my favorite places to hang out in all of Ocean Beach. We're at the Mermaid, and we're talking with the owner, Mr. Scott Hirsch. Scott, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for allowing me to do this. I couldn't think of a better way to celebrate my 50th summer in Ocean Beach than to be couching it with you, probably the sexiest man alive. So I'm kind of honored that you'd asked me to do this. Before we get started, though, I think a lot of your fans have a question they want you to answer, which is, how did you go from being the sexiest man alive, and certainly in Ocean Beach, to creating a whole cottage industry around that fact?
I got to give it up to your DJ. He really pushed me. He said, like, he wanted to start something up. He gave me the opportunity to come up with a good idea. I was counting money one night, talking with the other bartenders, and I'm like, this is the conversation we need to have on camera. This is the reality. This is the relatable stuff. And got to give it up to Just Joe. He's really been the other half of making all this happen. He pushed me, like, yeah. It's been an awesome journey so far. A lot of fun.
I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah.
And thank you for asking me.
I couldn't think of a better person to be here. You're a legend out here. Everybody knows you. You got one of the best spots.
Yeah. I think, I don't know about the term legend, but I think that all of us here have earned our stripes. And, I think part of what we should talk about today, and I guess we will talk about, is what's Ocean Beach been like over the last 50 years? What changes? We'll get to that. But I think that's kind of a fun thing to get into during today.
100%. Oh, we'll get over all that stuff. Starting off, though, like, we like to give everybody in the beginning your credentials. So, like, where did you start in the industry? What got you into the service industry? And where have you worked to now be the owner of this amazing place?
So the journey really started at about the age 16.
Okay.
The shortest version is I came over here one night with a group of friends. Was in East Islip High School at that time. And one Saturday in the locker room was summer sports season, preseason. And I was new to the town, and the guys in the locker room that I was on the team with said, "Hey, we're going to Fire Island tonight. Tell your mom and dad you're sleeping at, Phil's house. You got to lie to them and come over to Fire Island with us." And I never heard about Fire Island, didn't know what it was, because I had just moved there from somewhere about 30, 40 miles away. And we all came over one night. I fell in love with it right away. And the first night here, I talked myself into a job at Town Pizza, and sort of never left. But the route hasn't been a straight line. We could talk about how that happened. But my start was at Town Pizza in Ocean Beach, where I don't know if anybody, probably quite a few people actually know Angelo. He was my bunkmate in the back. He was 16 going on 17 and made pizzas 17 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that was the start, falling in love with Fire Island.
Yeah. I feel like pizza, ice cream, like those kind of industries, like, complement bartending so much. It's the same kind of hustle. You got to be quick. You have a lot of people coming to the counter. They want what they want now. You got to keep it rolling.
I think, and I tell this to a lot of the young people that start out with us, just the industry, it teaches you right from the get-go about how to interact with the public. Every guest that comes in is coming in with some different approach or story. You can't treat every guest the same. And I think it also teaches you to, deal with teammates, being part of a team.
Yep.
And when you're 16, 17, how you integrate yourself in that process, matters to your trajectory, I think.
For sure. So like this industry teaches you a lot for life, right? Like what's one of the biggest lessons this has given you into your everyday life that it spills over?
You have to follow your passion. I think if you have a passion for something, and it doesn't have to be hospitality. In my case, it turned out that way. But follow your passion, and other good things will follow. That's what I constantly tell anyone who asks, what should I do? What industry should I, go into? The people that are just chasing the money are going to have bigger issues throughout their career.
Right.
I think, because you're setting yourself up for some potential level of failure. So following your passion is probably my number one mantra.
Yeah, I love that. And then if you could look back at Scott when he was just getting started in this industry and give him some rookie advice, what would you look back and tell yourself?
I would say be nicer to people is probably, can be one of my shortcomings, I think.
Okay.
And it's a process. And some of it is related to some of the interactions with the public, as you've seen from discussions on this podcast before with other members of the industry. It can be taxing and difficult after a long day, but I think that would be the most important thing I would tell my younger self, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Be nicer to people from the get-go. I know it sounds crazy, but there's many days where I'm riding my bike to this place, where in the morning after that cup of coffee, I'm riding my bike here and I'm actually literally saying to myself, be nice to people, be nice today, be nice today. And I know it may sound silly, but I think if I start my mornings like that, it just reminds me. And it could be the very first guest that walks in that day, and maybe they have a chip on their shoulder. It happens.
Right.
And I think turning those people around to having a great day for themselves is one of the best things I can do that day. So what I do on my ride into work is I literally say good morning to every single person I pass, whether they say it back to me or not.
Yep.
It gets me in that mode of good morning, and maybe 60, 70% of the people will say good morning. They're shocked that you're riding your bike and you're saying good morning to a stranger, but it sets in motion the tone in your head for the day, and that's very important, especially when it starts to get towards August and the dog days of August, and people are tired and you've worked countless hours.
Yeah.
So I would say that's the best piece of advice I would give to my younger self is be nice to people right from the get-go, even strangers.
Yeah, I don't think it sounds silly at all. I think in this industry, you'd really get like pushed. People push your buttons, and like you have to have that patience. You have to learn that and know that, and come into your day, come into your shift with that positive energy. Otherwise, you're bringing everybody else down around you. It's like,
yeah, and it happens. Look, if you have hundreds, if not thousands, of people you're coming across in a week, you're going to run into some subset of that, whether it's 2, 5, 10, or 20 during the course of the week. And frankly, I pride myself on specializing in those cases.
Yeah.
Because the guests that come in that are always happy, always upbeat, always thankful, always grateful, I don't want to say they take care of themselves, but there's less energy related to that guest.
Right.
So I like to make sure, extra sure, that the 5, 10, 15, or 20 throughout the week that need that more attention get it. And sometimes you could take a situation where somebody's come in with one sort of mental circumstance, and they leave with a whole other,
Yep.
where they're now saying goodbye. That was terrific. Thank you so much. Thank you for getting water for my dog. Thank you for seating us away from the music. Thank you for finding a heater for us. Whatever it is, those little things act as core memories for other people,
For
and
sure.
that's what brings them back. It's sort of part of the overall hospitality umbrella,
Yep.
and that's how I approach literally every single guest.
So you got to feel each guest out, right? Like if somebody comes in with a negative attitude, there's not like one way to deal with that.
You have, and this is not just in the restaurant. This is a bigger issue.
Yeah.
This is in business. You have to meet people where they are, not where you are, not where you expect them to be.
Yep.
And it's called reading the room. And I think it's something that a lot of people who, let's say, either own restaurants or even run them as a manager, a lot of them don't get and understand. Reading the room and meeting people where they are,
Yeah.
in their circumstance, is really important. I think it's one of the chains, in one of the links in the chain, so to speak, that I think will make their experience more memorable, and hopefully result in them coming back
Yeah.
or telling their friends. And I've had it happen time and time again.
Yeah, meeting people where they are. That's like a great way to put it. That's honestly what needs to happen more in this industry. Getting into the Mermaid. So if somebody from across the country that's never been here before, they walk into the Mermaid, what can they expect? How would you explain this place to them? How would you?
I think what I would say is that the location speaks for itself, right? So if you had to ask 1,000 people, probably well over 900 might tell you it's the best location in all of Fire Island, certainly Western Fire Island, right?
My favorite.
So
I love it here, yeah.
I'm saying just purely from a location. I'm not even discussing what goes on here yet. I'm saying that
I love it. My Sundays here, sitting out on the water. This place is amazing. I love it.
But again, and so like there's 4 legs to every chair, right? So this is my philosophy.
Yeah.
Location is one of them that can breed success, right? It's an element that you want to have in your arsenal, right? Location. But there's 3 other legs to the chair. And so I would say that, and this is my opinion, there are very few places, although when you're in one of them, that have put together all 4 legs of that chair. Some have 2, some have 3. When you're in a place that has all 4 legs of that chair.
Right.
I've made some notes thinking about this over the years. So the legs of the chair that I consider most important,
Yep.
like I said, location is you either have it or you don't. Although I have from time to time seen people take a mediocre location and make it a destination. That's a separate art in
Right.
the industry. That can be done. But beyond that, I think the second leg is what I would call culture. So you have to go out of your way right from the get-go to create a culture. That's a culture within, it's a culture in your hiring, it's a culture in everything you do. Culture of excellence, but you also, at the same time within that culture, you have to pick a lane. You can't be everything to all people. You
Yeah.
have to know what you want to be, and you have to execute in terms of the culture consistent with what you want to be.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
There's places I go because they're just, I give you an example, and it just came to my mind right now. If you're driving out east and you see a shack on the side of the road and it's just full of people, you're saying to yourself, wow, this place is almost in the middle of nowhere. What's driving these people there? I bet if you go there and sit down and actually interact with the staff and check out what they're doing, you'll find a culture.
Yeah.
And so that's number 2. Number 3 is consistency. Anyone can execute once or twice on a level that's well above average, if not terrific. But to do that time and time again on each guest's return visit, when you're constantly internally raising the bar for their visits, is not an easy task, but consistency is the third leg of the chair as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
And then the last leg of the chair is value. Are you giving people real value? These days, people have a lot of choices, certainly more and more in Fire Island, but we'll get to that because that's also one of the things I'm proud of out here. But value. Now, value doesn't have to mean money. Value can be their perception of how well they were treated, extra little things that you or your staff might do that cost nothing, also part of the hospitality umbrella,
Right.
but value. I think
Value is the whole package.
value, so location, culture, consistency, and value, those are the four legs of the chair, and I think, I have to be honest, I don't know anyone that does it better out here than us. And so when you asked me earlier, what can people expect, tell a stranger why you should go to the Mermaid or what they might expect, that's the umbrella.
They're getting all four legs of the chair.
They're getting all four legs of the chair.
And I could attest to that 100%. I love hanging out here, whether it's on a Sunday afternoon or a Saturday night. Any dinner service, you guys are always top notch. The food is great. The drinks are great. The staff is great.
Well, and again, you've been here to see this. Like, you've seen me in the middle of the day, if all of a sudden some weird, funky, stupid song comes on that's going to affect the vibe, that's going to, it's a small thing, but we'll instantly exit from that.
Yep.
And, maybe either learn from it or not, but we'll make sure that the guest experience isn't interrupted in any way by anything but good stuff.
Yeah. So coming to the Mermaid, you guys, like we said, you have great food, you got great drinks. What's some stuff, if you come to the Mermaid, you have to have? Like some dishes you gotta get?
Well, I think one
Your
of the
calamari.
Okay, yeah. So you
Right.
mentioned that.
Yeah.
So one of the things I decided early on is nothing happens by accident, right? Certainly nothing good. The days of success by accident are over. The margins in the industry have changed. And so one of the things that I decided early on was we were going to create several dishes that were that wow factor. Like David Burke has his, popsicle that he got famous for, et cetera, et cetera. And you'll find, I think, that in memorable restaurants, there's always that 1, 2, or 3 items that people talk about, right?
Yep.
They could have a great experience across the board, but people will always talk about 1, 2, or 3 items, whether it's a drink or a food item. And I decided early on that we were going to do a few things. One of which was we were going to, in the early days, we were going to integrate, let's call them earth materials, into a bunch of the food concepts. So we were one of the first to ever do use cedar, actual planks of cedar. And, it's common now, and it's been common perhaps over the last decade or so, but when we started 36 years ago, no one was doing that. So we did a cedar plank salmon. It made an incredible presentation. We took copper pipes, beautiful copper pipes, and did polenta stacks inside the copper pipes, and you would remove the copper pipe tableside. A little bit of a wow factor.
Yeah.
We decided, much to the angst of my food runners, I decided we were going to go to a quarry and physically break up their chipped pieces of marble. I would go to a quarry, and they would actually let me have fun and take their chipped pieces of marble, slam them on the ground, and then whatever broke off, we would then put our desserts on. So the food runners would be carrying these massively heavy pieces of marble with a dainty,
Yeah.
angel food cake or whatever on top of it. and it was a bit of a wow.
Yep.
And we did the same thing with the calamari. We made it massively oversized, almost, you know, too much. And it became one of the dishes, besides its great, you know, how enjoyable it is, it became one of those things where it was like, did you see the size of the calamari they put out?
We got to get that.
It was, every table was having it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of that behind the scenes in terms of what went on early on to get the traction. So, you know, in coming out of the gate, I knew that we had to do a few things to get noticed. One of the things I decided early on, some of this is in my book, you know, you see I wrote a book, but one of the things I decided early on, and I don't know if the camera will get to it, but there's a giant 7, 8, 9 foot mermaid above the bar that weighs 600 pounds. That was a big deal when we did it 36 years ago. And I got that idea because living in New York City and coming up in the restaurant industry, I happened to be at, I believe it was, I don't know, Tao. Yeah, it was probably Tao. And they had this giant Buddha in the lobby that people would stop and take pictures in front of. Again, a little more than 36 years ago. It seems now like people do things like that all the time, but, you know, that was an idea that came to mind to say, okay, what can we do to make a statement that we're here and we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere for decades, right out of the gate. Having that mermaid up there, year one, sends the message that this is a serious endeavor. Nobody puts a 600-pound mermaid above their bar, and a beautiful one at that, without coming out of the gates to make a statement like, we're here, come enjoy it. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, you know, although there's a story behind a lot of things, we don't have time today. Like I said, the thing about that mermaid is a bunch of things that are pretty impressive about it, architecturally, structurally. There's a great story behind it. It was made as a gift to me by one of the world's most famous sand sculptors. I couldn't afford to even have him do it, but I went to him nonetheless because I knew he loved Fire Island. Jerry Lioness is his name. You can look him up. And I said, Jerry, I have this crazy idea. You know, I've bought this spot. It's going to be called the Island Mermaid. And I thought of you right away. Would you do a sand sculpture for me? And he said, you know, Scott, you realize you can't afford what I do. He gets flown all over the world to do sculptures for big corporations. He said, but I love Fire Island, and I'll do it for you because I see the passion. I feel the passion. And I'll do it for you under 2 conditions. Real artist. And I said, Jerry, whatever 2 conditions, I'm in.
Yeah.
I want that above my bar. He said, well, the 2 conditions are that your hot wife has to pose for the clay mold I'm going to do first. He had to do a clay sculpture mold. And number 2, you have to let me finish it on site with Fire Island sand. I thought that was just brilliant.
Yeah.
So you're going to do it, but then you're going to finish it on site. He said, yeah, unless you and your boys go up to the beach and get me enough sand to do it, I'm out. And I said, done.
I'll get you as much sand as you want. Yeah.
Done. So it was a great fun experience. The only other thing I would say about that story is a bunch of us, including Jamie Ragusa, Dougie Wyckoff, may he rest in peace, we drove into the city in 2 trucks to get that thing out of Spanish Harlem. And as we pull up, again, another story in the book, but as we pull up, there's probably 30, 40 young children outside crying. And I couldn't understand what was going on. They were all screaming and crying. And there's Jerry, the sculptor, outside, videotaping the whole thing. And I said, Jerry, what's up? Is everything okay? Why are these kids crying? He said, Scott, they don't want her to leave. They've watched me give birth to her and build her in the basement of the building. and they became attached to her, and they know she's leaving, and they're all crying. They don't want her to leave. And I was thinking to myself in the last couple of years, those kids that were crying are probably now 45 years old.
Yeah.
I was thinking, I wonder if they remember it the same way I remember it. It was just a brilliant evening, and it took a lot to get her up there. But anyway, that's just sort of a little bit of a rabbit hole anecdote. But yeah, making a statement right from the beginning. That's why I love, for example, what our friends at the Last Resort are doing in town. And we'll get to it, you know, if we get to a question where you ask me about what's changed in Fire Island, good and bad.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, but
I mean, we can go into that if you want to.
yeah, I mean, I don't listen.
Talk.
It's not my.
Yeah.
It's not. I think there are some things that I would like to express, and so there's a whole bunch of things that have changed out here. Some for the bad, and in the restaurant industry in general. But some of these things apply to Fire Island. And one of the really positive things I was thinking about, excuse me, is that when I first came out here, there was no sense of hospitality. The prior owners out here, many of whom have passed on, since it's been close to 50 years in terms of that. It's my 50th year here, but they had this captive audience mentality. The businesses that were owned and operated out here at that time believed that they were going to be successful whether you came or didn't come, whether you came back or didn't come back. It was sort of a very unusual environment. You don't see it many places, but that's the deal. And one of the things that came up in my mind was we have to change that whole idea of captive audience mentality, along with issues of the land of no, which we haven't even yet got into. And I was thinking that people have more and better choices now in Fire Island than they've ever had. And among those, I was thinking who in Ocean Beach really does it well in terms of hospitality, making people feel good, and creating promotions that are designed to be inclusive. And I think the top two for me right now are our friends at the Last Resort and also my friend Joe at Rachel's. I think those two places really stand out in the last couple of years as really putting the effort to find their lane, and to build their lane, and to build their culture around that lane. I see who's up for the task and who clearly isn't.
Right.
And I would put those folks in the category of they're not only up for the task, but I'm really proud to watch what they're doing. Happy.
Yeah.
So, in terms of anything where the industry I think is taken some hits, I think that one of the biggest problems we have in our industry now is everyone's a food critic. Everyone's a critic.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's a food critic. People are going out to restaurants now almost specifically to photograph the food and not even spend time with their friends. They're on their phones, their photos. So the whole thing of everyone being a critic and having that type of energy in the dining room or on the deck is not helpful.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing that's happened more recently, and I'm certainly not the first to observe it at all, is the infusion of weight loss products, weight loss drugs, whether it's an Ozempic or anything else, has really begun to change the industry. And if you're not aware of it and not staying out in front of it, in some sense you may be missing opportunities, but you have to be really concerned about that.
Because they're not drinking or eating.
Yeah,
like they
or
used
they're
to.
certainly cutting back.
Yeah.
Check guest averages. Check averages are, if anything, at best generally flat over the last couple of years. So that internally puts on a different pressure, which is you have to get more market share, right?
Yep.
So there's only several ways you can deal with the income side of the calculation is you either have to get check averages up and or get better market share. There's no magic wand, right? So having flat check averages puts the stress on the market share part of the calculation, you understand?
Yep.
Because costs are always going up. So that's a change in our industry that's been recent. The other thing I will say about that's somewhat unique to Fire Island that I've observed over the arc of time is that the trends in alcohol consumption have changed. Everybody, the first visual is the canned cocktail, right? So but even before that, things started changing. The advent of things like Red Bull and other products mixed with alcohol, the consumption of shots as a bar product has changed so much over my journey. Back in the day when I first came to the scene out here, people were doing a different type of thing. It was, Quaaludes and things like that, where the environment inside the establishments was a different vibe. It wasn't the vibe we have now, which is, hey, pay attention to your surroundings because things are about to get extra energetic around here.
Right.
The vibe has changed. So I've noticed that as something that I would say, you could say it's good, it's bad. To me, it's probably more on the bad column. What else did I? Oh yeah, the other trend, which is pretty obvious, is how people pay, right? So nowadays we have people ordering. They want to order, one drink and close it out on their Apple Watch, as opposed to back in the day when I first started here. So behind the bar, we had a rack. It was literally, you ever clock in and out of a job?
Yeah.
We had, Mark, I'm not kidding you. We had 2 racks, and people had their own card, like all the regulars. And the regulars would literally run their tab, and you would grab their card and handwrite on their card what they're drinking, and they would close it out at the end of the night. We'd have 40, 50 regulars running tabs and close them out at the end of the night. It's completely different now.
You can't do that anymore.
And so the advent of other forms of payment have really, stuck their nose in that little beehive. So those are some of the, I guess, bad and good changes I've observed.
Right.
The hospitality out here, and this is a Fire Island thing, hospitality's gotten so much better. The captive audience mentality is largely eradicated. People have more and better choices, like I said, in mentioning 2 spots that I'm now very fond of and send people to all the time.
Yeah, I love those
I'm
spots.
always looking, we're blessed, Mark. We have overflow, what I guess people would consider overflow. There are times during the week and even sometimes on the weekend where people will come up and we don't have a spot for them, or we don't have it for another half hour.
Yep.
There's something reasonable. And they'll say, hey, do you have any other recommendations? And my recommendations have changed over time because I'm watching what people do. Because if I'm going to send you somewhere else, you ever watch the movie where Miracle on 34th Street, right?
I know of it.
Miracle on 34th Street, there's this great scene where people come and the moms put the kids on Santa's lap, and the kid's looking for a certain toy, and Macy's doesn't have it. And Santa does something revolutionary in that movie. You hear him say, we don't have that at Macy's, but if you go down to Gimbel's, I'm throwing out a name, Gimbel's been out of business for a long time. But if you go down to Gimbel's, I happen to know they have it. Tell them Santa sent you. That was brilliant because you just made a new friend. You sent them somewhere else to a competitor or a perceived competitor because you didn't have what they want. So I do that routinely 15, 20 times a week. I'm sending our guests somewhere else because we didn't have, it could be a food item.
Right.
It could be a regular of ours that says, hey, Scott, do you have any lobster today? And I'll say, we only have the lobster roll. We don't have fresh lobster. But if you go to Matthew's and tell them Scott sent you, they can do that for you.
Yep.
And it's that hospitality of extending yourself.
and you know from yourself, you've traveled a lot, right? So I try to take a lot of the concepts and use them that I've seen in use to put to good use anywhere around the world. And there's been times I've been in a foreign country and place number one doesn't have necessarily what I want, and somebody went out of their way to enhance my trip by making sure I got well taken care of somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's a place I'll always return to. I think that's a layup. That's free. That's value added. That's hospitality.
Yeah, I feel like we have such a small little town out here, and I think like it's competition. Each business is their own, but we all kind of do have each other's back. Everybody is sending each other to another place. Everybody does kind of like work as a team almost out here, within a certain right.
Yeah, there's a friendly rivalry. There's a friendly competition. Look, if I can be a little more blunt, there are some places out here that are just, it's hard to say if they're just not paying attention or they don't care. I can't say, but typically the locals, the industry people, the locals know and have their ear to the ground. And those are not places I'm sending anyone I care about.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to send you somewhere where you're going to have a less than excellent experience, and then you don't trust my recommendation when you finally sit at my table. When you come in here and sit at our tables, you have to trust us. You have to trust us to guide you through a great meal or trust us to take care of you. And if I didn't make a great recommendation the first time I couldn't take care of you, you may not come back to me. And frankly, I may not realize it for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of important to take care of people even when you're sending them somewhere else.
Yeah, no, for sure. Give them a good recommendation that you feel proud about. If somebody's coming into the Mermaid, they're going to the bar, what drink do they have to have when they're here?
Well, I'm not shy about telling people that they should have a drink that someone else invented. Look, to answer your question more directly, I would tell them to get a watermelon jalapeno margarita that we batch in-house with fresh crushed watermelon. I like that sweet and savory, spicy combination. I like that.
I got one right here.
That's for me.
Yep.
But, and I've recently found tequila, but that's a whole nother discussion. But I would say to them, you know what? Get a zippy. I'm really jazzed to say that the guys next door and AJ, may he rest in peace. That's their sort of labeled cocktail, and it's great, and people order it in copious amounts, and you just have to make it right and make it good. But on the other hand, this whole controversy, people have discovered the rocket fuel, right? So this might be a little bit of a good time to put that controversy into focus, right? Everybody thinks one place out here invented the rocket fuel because they got a plaque from a company that supplies the liquor. But in reality, that drink was invented in this building, not by us, by our predecessors. I was around for it, and it's a great drink. I think everybody thinks they make the best one. I say let the public decide, but we get a ton of compliments on it. And so, I mean, I believe that, I know that drink was invented in this building by guys that I ultimately worked with when I was bartending here for many years before I bought the building, but they were here before me. And so that, I don't know if that clears up any mystery or controversy.
Well, we're saying Mermaid is the home of the rocket fuel. It was invented here.
I'm saying that the predecessor to the Mermaid, which was Leo's. This place was many things, 4 things over its history. Goldie's to begin with, then Leo's, then Wally's, then the Mermaid. I worked for Leo, albeit for one brief season before he passed away, And then I continued working for his successor, Wally, for 7 years after that, before I bought the building. But during that stretch of time, that's when I came to know where and how it was invented in this building before I had anything to do with the building, at least by a few years. So I think it's kind of comical and funny and sweet and cool that there's this controversy. But if you peel back the onion, so to speak, you could literally be the home of the rocket fuel, and perhaps they are, because they got an award or a plaque 15, 20 years ago. But I'm talking about the underpinnings of the drink were in the late 70s, way before anyone became the home of the rocket fuel.
Right.
So I don't know if that, resolves any controversy. Maybe it makes it worse.
Yeah.
But the fact
Stir
that
the
there,
pot a little.
you know what? The fact that there is a controversy is actually a fun, good thing.
Yeah.
Let it continue.
For sure.
Go interview those people and see what they say. But I have the receipts for it. I was there.
I love it. Yeah. Being an owner, because you've worked throughout the whole industry, right? Like you've been a busser, you've been a server, you've been a bartender, now you're an owner. How have you seen it change in your eyes?
Well, I think I touched on this a little bit earlier. I would only add to that I'm generally, this is not a sweeping assertion, I'm generally less impressed with the work ethic of many up-and-coming people, not all. And the trick is to hire the right people that have the great work ethic, which we can talk about, what I look for, and what our team looks for. We probably should touch on that. But
let's get into that.
But before we get to that, I would say, you say what has changed, and I would say, having gone through things good and bad that I talked about earlier. One thing that I left out, because we're closer to that question now with this question, is the work ethic. And this is probably not even just, I hear it from friends in other industries, this is not even just a hospitality issue, is many, many younger people don't have that hunger in that first job. They don't understand how important it is to show up on time, to do things without being asked, to be a self-starter. These are the things that, and again, true not just for hospitality, even in my other roles, as a lawyer, in my office, these are things where employers are looking for. Does this person have the motivation? Are they showing up on time or even a little early? This is, I think, what is now potentially a problem and missing, certainly in our industry, but across a range of industries.
So, to go deeper into that, though, what would be, if you're hiring somebody, what are you looking for?
Skills can be learned. Attitude and work ethic are a lot harder. That you come with that. It's almost into your DNA. So I tend to I love hiring athletes, people who are athletic, not because they're athletic, but because they generally understand the concept of a team mentality and that teammates have to support each other. So I tend to look for athletes. I love when we hire, for example, lacrosse players or this and that. And I also find that at times there's a difference between hiring someone whose parents have kind of pushed them to go get a job for the summer versus, and some of that, by the way, is on-island parents who just want to keep their kids busy and making a buck or two or getting them out of the house. That's a giant red flag for me. I tend to shy away from that, and I tell any parents that send kids our way, listen, your kid's not going to get treated any differently because I know you. In fact, it may be harder on them. And even the same with my own kids who worked for me since they're 12 years old. The bar is a little bit different from them, no pun intended. And so I tend to like hiring kids from certain communities on Long Island that I find are not only very commutable, but tend to produce really some hardworking kids. And then the other type of person we like to hire is when it's from a great recommendation from an existing terrific staff member, because that staff member is recommending someone that they trust not to let us down or let them down, more importantly. And so we'll give a strong nod, a strong preference to a highly recommended friend of an existing coworker,
Yep.
employee. I think that gives people a leg up. So if you want to think about the future, get your friends who work here to maybe send you our way.
Yeah.
They rarely let us down. So
Yeah, I would never put my name on the line recommending somebody that I didn't feel secure was going to do a good job. You know, like some people ask me, "Oh, can you help me get a job?" Sorry, you know, because
Exactly.
no, they're not. Other
Exactly.
people, I'm like, you know, you don't want, like you said with your recommendations of another restaurant, one of your employees doesn't want to recommend somebody
Yeah.
to let you down. You don't want to recommend another restaurant that's going to let somebody down. That hurts you all around.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I think one of the things might be kind of fun to talk about, because you and I had some brief discussion about what do I want to talk about. Look, a lot of your show, a lot of the podcast show here has been, you know, interviewing bartenders who are either currently bartending or have that, you know, strong history. I bartended here for ages and ages. Even for many years after I bought it, I was one of the bartenders. So I have a long history, which kind of puts me into that category. But I think one of the kind of potentially cool, interesting stories is, how did I get here? Like, how did it happen? Because I have a lot of people out there that think that I'm just some guy who got rich being a lawyer and just bought a trophy property. Nothing could be farther from the truth. And so your audience reaches a different segment for me to have people understand that that's not what happened here. And I think that's not unimportant to me because, quite frankly, and we'll talk about this, the idea of legacy to me is really important as I, you know, get to the later stages of life, God willing. I think legacy is something we should talk about, but it starts long before that. So here I am. I had worked in this building from about roughly age 21 to 27 or 28. During that time, as a young lawyer, not only working here, but getting up every morning, getting on that 7:30 boat every day after working here till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and all those years working for my predecessors as a bartender and for a long time bar manager. And so I hear that the building is coming up for sale, is actually coming up for sale. And I was 28, maybe just turning 29 at the time. And I had just settled my first significant legal matter, right, personal injury matter. And I decided that I was going to buy the building and take what was my trickle-down fee from that case and put it all on red or black. I was going to take the whole pissy pot and let it ride if I could. The problem was I only had $50,000. And buying this building for $50,000 wasn't generally, I thought, in the cards until it was. And that's a really cool part of the story. So I tell people one of the biggest mistakes people in this industry can make is not owning the real estate, right? You never, in this industry, it's like cardinal rule number one. You want to do everything you can to own the real estate so that the landlord doesn't, you know, jack you up the minute you make it successful, right? So I walk down the street, and it's a small town. Everybody knows who owns the property. And the guy I'm working for at that time is late 70s. I know he has no interest in buying the building. He was happy to sign a new 10, 15-year lease and ride it out. But I knew his lease was ending. and the building was for sale. So here's an opportunity to buy the building and get the business with it. Whether it was a good business or a bad business, we could, you know, interact about that.
Right.
But so here's a building coming up for sale where the lease is ending. So I go down the street and I knock on his door. Knock, 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 knock. And the guy doesn't know me from anywhere. And he opens the door and he says, "Who the fuck are you?" And I said, "Well, Mr. Stretch, you don't know me. My name is Scott. I've been working in your building for 7 years down the road, Leo's Wally's." And I said, "I heard your building's for sale and I want to buy it." And he looks at me and he says, "You know I want $1 million for that building. Where are you going to get that kind of money?" And I said to him, "I'm not." He said, "Well, why are you here?" I said, "Well, if you let me in, I'll tell you how we do this." And he looked at me as if being, now he's really intrigued because here's some, you know, young upstart kid. So I go in and I sit down and I said, "Mr. Stretch, I know you want $1 million for your building, but I only have 50,000. He said, "Well, so why are you here?" I said, "Well, if you listen to me, you're going to play bank. You're going to be my banker. But in return for that, for signing a note personally for that difference between 50,000 and $1 million, which is $950,000, I'm going to also guarantee that I borrow and put into your building," I called it a shithole, on purpose to get his attention because he hadn't put a nickel in this building in decades. I said, I'm going to put $300,000 into your shithole and fix it up. New plumbing, new electric, new everything.
Before even opening.
Right. And I said, "Guess what? If I lose, you win. If I win, you win." And he thought about it and he said, "You know, it's not such a bad idea." And I said, "You know, what do you think?" And he said, "I'll do it, but I have my own conditions." And then he said, essentially, "I will do it, but you're going to have to pay me 15% interest, and I'm only doing it for 4 years," because I had proposed to him in the context of the conversation that he do it for more than 6 to give me enough time to build it to then take him out on a refinance, which is pretty common practice. He said, "No, I'll only do it for 4 years. I'm getting old. I'll do it for 4 years at 15%. What do you think about that?" And I said, "Okay, I can live with that, but your mortgage has to be non-recourse," which I'll explain if you don't know. It has to be non-recourse, and now I'm not paying you $1 million. I'm going to pay you $995,000. And he says, "What's with the $5,000? I said, "Well, there's a millionaire's tax, and that's going to cost me a lot of money. So if I buy it for $995, I save that money." He said, "You know what, kid? I like you. You got some serious balls.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this deal with you." And I reached out and shook his hand and almost got literally crushed to death by 15% interest over the first 4 years. Didn't sleep in the wintertime. If I tell you that during the first 3 years, how much time I spent with my head in a toilet bowl in my apartment in Manhattan, retching about how much money I owed at the end of each season to my vendors. And by the way, the other kind of thing, you know, you have to think out of the box. The first 2 or 3 years, I left here owing my vendors, call it, I don't know, $100,000. But I didn't wait for them to chase me. Before the season ended, I called up every single vendor that I owed money to and said, "Listen, here's the story. You don't have to chase me. If you need to charge me some interest over the winter, but in return for you carrying me over the winter, I'm going to give you 30 years of loyalty. There's going to be a lot of people coming along over the course of time that want to take your place. I'm not going to let them." And I was true to my word. The people that helped carry me the first few years to get through that difficult, you know, everybody knows the first 3 years of a restaurant are critical. I still use them. It's 36 years later, and they're like, Scott, you could easily have gone somewhere else. I said, no, you were there for me when I needed you, and I'm going to keep my word.
Yeah.
My word is everything. It's very important to me. So by reaching out to them preemptively, they didn't hassle me all winter. It might have been 6 or 8 of them,
Right.
but I got through those first difficult years until I could get rid of Mr. Stretch.
Yeah.
So
You ease their concerns by reaching out to them before
yeah,
they had
yeah.
to reach out to you.
Yeah. People love honesty.
For sure.
People love honesty. I feel that same way inside the restaurant. Look, if you're doing, pick a number. If you're doing 1,000, 2,000 meals a week, 3,000, whatever the number is, you're going to make mistakes. I tell people all the time, we're not curing cancer. It's fixable. Give us a chance to fix it. And if they ask what happened, I tell them all the time, honestly, what happened. We had an incident, and it happens. We had an incident where a food runner dropped one of 6 plates on his way to the table. The tray wasn't balanced. It happens. I walk by the table, and I see everyone's eating except one person. So I ask, hey, guys, what's going on? And they said, our food hasn't come. I said, let me go check on it. I ask a couple questions, and I come to learn the truth. I go right back to that table and say, listen, guys, I have to be honest with you. Once every 800 or 1,000 meals, we make a mistake, and
You're the unlucky mistake.
Yeah, and I kind of try to make a joke out of it, buy them a drink right away, tell them I am on it. The kitchen's already got it fired. I'm sorry for the delay. But people love honesty, right? They can sense bullshit.
Yeah, without
right?
a doubt.
Don't give them the bullshit. Tell them the honest truth. It's a restaurant. Things happen. It's never intentional. Oh, my God. Have we ever intentionally made a mistake like that? Never.
That would hurt the business to
Right.
intentionally do
Right.
that. Yeah.
So, but when you change people's focus and they go, wow, that was like the most honest answer I've gotten. And they wasn't like, oh, they're working on it. It's like, no, we're working on it because somebody dropped a plate.
Right.
You know, so I think that's important.
Honesty, I completely agree. It's a huge thing. Being an owner, you got to wear a lot of different hats. And I know I've seen you in action. You wear many different hats. A lot of times a Superman one, but you are like you said, the song's not right. You're acting DJ. You're always helping seat tables. You're helping the food. Like, you're all over the place.
Right.
How do you learn that?
I would say a few things about that. One is having come up in the trenches myself, toiling in the trenches, so to speak, for 8 years before taking on that next challenge. I learned, not only here, but in other places that I worked in New York City, et cetera, I learned all the parts of the moving train, right? And so for me, the first decade, doing those things was 100% related to fear. Fear, always passion, always had the passion, never, but fear was so high that it outmaneuvered the passion. And that was for the first decade, maybe 15 years, because the expenses of running it and the learning curve of getting it done was so intersected at a point of fear.
Yeah.
So fear is what drove me to take on all those tasks and do it to make sure it was getting done right. So it was instilled in me, and it's not something that's going to go away. Now what controls it is passion, right? I can't stand if a bus person who's cleaned a table has missed 3 or 4 really important things that I can fix in 8 seconds, rather than go tell them, bring them back to the table, and show them what's not right. And it could be, honestly, something silly like the fork and knife is on the wrong side of the plate. It could be that, you know, those little Wixie sticks that we give out for the kids, they're melting underneath the chair that I'm about to seat someone at. So if I can take care of all those things and lead by example, by the way, because staff, you know, we have a staff meeting every week, and the things that I go over with them are things that they've seen me do time and time again, gives me real credibility. Like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Seeing an owner get their hands dirty, you respect that.
If I can make sure that anyone eating something that needs a steak knife has a steak knife and don't have to ask for it, or they have ketchup when I know there's going to be 8, orders of curly fries at the table. I can't stand, when I'm dining out, I try and set the standard of what's the difference between good service and great service. And there is a difference. You could be a good server, but to be a great server is a whole next level. And it involves many things.
Ordinary or extraordinary?
Yeah,
It's that little extra.
If you're going to be a great server, you better have the steak knife on my. I don't want to be asking for it the third time I try to cut my steak with a butter knife, or I'm about to bite into this tremendous cheeseburger and there's no ketchup on the table. So these are little things, but you ask. Getting back to your original question, you ask, why do I do it? I do all these things. Again, the beginning out of fear, overtaking the passion, but for the last 15 years, certainly the last 10, it's been pure passion. At the point now where the passion has overcome the fear, and that's the fun part for me. So I'm having more fun now than I did the first 30 years, more fun. And within that umbrella, there's one thing that I don't think I'll ever give up, and that's, I love to, and even Joe, who's standing there off camera, knows this because we talk about it relentlessly. He gets these texts from me about new songs to make sure get added to the list, or I'll ask him to send me things. I do really enjoy that one time a week where I am DJ H-Bomb. I guess that's my...
H-Bomb?
I'm H-Bomb. H-Bomb.
I like that.
We have Just Joe, JJ2, as he's known, and I'm H-Bomb. So that's a part of the job that it really feels zen-like to me.
Yeah.
And not to mention, we have a very diverse demographic here. There's times where I'm, again, read the room. I'm looking out and I'm thinking, wow, what a great time it would be to play Rubber Band Man or something from the Cornelius Brothers from the 70s, or even if it's Down on the Corner by, Creedence Clearwater. Reading the room and elevating the room is something that a lot of people, and it transcends into the music as well.
Yeah.
Not just reading the room to see that, this table's from Italy, that table's from Long Island, reading the room, how to interact with people. So, yeah, the music to me is something that I really love being able to do, and it seems to be a little bit of a big hit. So.
Everybody loves it. Yeah, you're great at it. You're great at throwing the party. You're great at having that energy, like you said, reading the room, knowing what needs to be delivered in that moment.
Reading the room.
You're not just doing one thing over and over again.
Yeah.
You're feeling it out.
And frankly, it's a lot of it's muscle memory, because don't forget, I've been in this building for 42 years now.
Yeah.
36 of which at the helm, but it's muscle memory. So I could literally be in the middle of doing 2 other things, and I almost get this weird, spidey sense. I get this weird sense that the room feels off. Something's not right here.
Yeah.
And it could be that a few things need to be fixed. Quite frankly, it could be that the fans need to be turned on, or a big one, the lights need to be dimmed. There's times I've walked through this place and I'm like, God, what's off about this? And all of a sudden I look up and it's like, it looks like a goddamn bowling alley. Read the room.
Yeah.
Read the room, make the changes that are going to progress the night in a direction that makes sense for the culture you're trying to create. Read the room.
Out here, a big thing is locals and tourists. It's both great money. It's both great. It's great to have both of them as customers. Is there one that you prefer over your years of experience?
It's a fair question to some extent, but both have a literal seat at the table, right?
Without a doubt.
So
they're both super important.
yes, especially if you're going to be chameleon-like and be many things throughout your day, right? So today's visitors, tomorrow's homeowner. It's really important that we treat. I'll give you another example. This just popped into my head. I'm thinking about this. Do you know when I first got here in the restaurant scene? This may sound little, but it just struck me this moment. no restaurants would ever allow people from the street, non-guests, to use their bathrooms. It was forbidden. Every shop in town, every restaurant had a sign out front, maybe some limited exceptions. Even this place before I took it over. Bathrooms are for patrons only. I swear to God.
Yeah.
And I looked at that, among many other things, this captive audience mentality thing that I had to change. And I was like, I'm taking that fucking sign down. Somebody you let use the bathroom, 6 out of 10 might come in and say, you know what? That was a really good guy. They knew I needed.
Yeah.
And of course, some of it was related to, the water usage dynamic out here and changed after the water tower was redone, all that. But just the idea that you would go somewhere. I mean, I've been lucky enough, blessed to travel a lot of places in the world. Very few times have I ever seen a sign on a restaurant that said, bathrooms are for patrons only. It was fucking annoying and stupid and silly and antithetical to the idea of hospitality. I probably just went off on a big tangent, so I don't know. Oh, getting back to guests. I have an anecdotal thing that I tell people. You talk about locals, visitors. The only two groups and people agree with me all the time, the only two groups of people that I ever have a problem with are people who are looking to have a fun time that are A, off-duty police officers, and B, off-duty firemen, in that order.
Yeah.
And we laugh about it and joke about it, and most of the time it works out. But the premise of your question, I don't pick and choose. I try to treat locals. One of the things I'm really proud about here in this particular establishment is we have consciously, coming from me on down, consciously, and work very hard. In fact, Brittany's boyfriend, Joe Cilio, and I talked about this years ago when he was here. How do we make the Island Mermaid more attractive to the locals? You see, because for many years, we weren't. And that was a conscious effort on his part and my part. And it found its way into the hiring and some of the practices, including changes in my own behavior. If I'm being really honest, which I always try to be, I was not really well liked or known to a lot of the locals. And I had to make changes in my behavior and my perception outwardly, actually calculated changes, not calculated in a sense of trying to fool someone, not that
Right,
calculation, but actual reminding myself.
Intentful, yeah.
Just like I say hello to people in the morning on my way here, that little anecdote, for years, it's now muscle memory to me, it's part of who I am. But for years, there was a 5-year stretch where I had to remind myself while I was in here to make the extra effort to ingratiate myself, to show people I was accessible and not super aloof or conceited or whatever the adjectives might be that surround that personality.
Right.
I was so laser focused on taking care of our guests that it would often come across as, well, he's an asshole, or he's this, or he's that, none of which was true, but it was my fault for letting myself be portrayed that way because I was so tunnel visioned about one group or one segment. So I literally came to the conclusion, and I remember discussing this with Joe Cilio, how are we, through me and us and the bar, et cetera, going to expand into an area that it was probably one of the few things we were deficient in. You have all these places, they're running football pools, darts, all these other things that grab the attention of the locals, and we were doing none of it. And that had to change. And the change comes from me. I had to be the catalyst for that change. I had to wake up one day and say, you know what? These locals out here, they're not coming in here in the volume we want them to. Why? And I had to do some self-reflection and realize that some of that was me, my fault, as the boss, as the owner, as the person setting the culture.
Yep.
So I had to broaden that culture now and do specific things. And I won't get into detail about all the specifics, but there were probably 6, 8, 10, 12 things that had to get done in order to, over time, broaden that culture. Now I'm really proud to say that I have to say I am shocked, amazed, pleased, humbled by the amount of attention we get from locals now. And I mean locals, I'm talking about from Kismet all the way down to Davis Park. It's gotten that good, that impressive,
Well, this is the spot.
that lovely. Yeah, but again, nothing happens by accident. That was a mental calculation and a lot of deep reflection that I did personally and worked with my team. I don't have all the ideas. I take the greatest ideas from my staff, whether it's Vicky or Travis now or other people in the past, Johnny Gerace, Joe Cilio, other people like that said to me, hey, Scott, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. Why don't we do this or that? And it was that taking the best 2 or 3 ideas from a bunch of people that lit the fuse, that set us on that trajectory, and we work hard on every day to make sure that this is a place that locals want to be, they feel comfortable. And again, we didn't do it to the diminution of our other guests, to the detriment of our other guests. We broadened the pie, we broadened the scope, we didn't narrow it. And that takes effort, concentration, and willpower. And now it's just part of the culture and who we are. But it wasn't at one point.
Right. And so, like, we talked about The Last Resort, and we did a podcast down there, and something Justin had said, which is kind of something you're talking about right now, is accountability. And, like, his new employees, accountability is a big thing in this industry. Even, like, when you were saying before, the kitchen messes up, they dropped a plate. You have to take that accountability.
Yeah.
You can't lie, right? And you saw that there was things that you were doing wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't try to defend that. Where I think a lot of people in this industry, they try to like defend themselves, make an excuse of why what they're doing is gonna work, instead of actually taking a step back, taking the accountability, and making the necessary changes. I think that's why you are so successful. That's why this is, even the years that I've been out here, I've watched this place grow. Like it's now a night spot, like you guys have a great thing. But I think a lot of that does stem from accountability, which is something Justin brought up.
Yeah,
Which is,
I think one of the hallmarks of people who do it well, and it's another thing I love to sort of tell people is, it's one thing to know what you know, but a lot of people are not smart enough to know what they don't know. And stepping into that, I don't know about this, or somebody may know better and I should take some advice from other people, that can be terrifying for some people. For me, it's not. I like to lean into it.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I realized was I wasn't spending enough time in other establishments. Now, I'm probably in my relatively young old age, I'm probably one of the few owners that really makes an effort to, either me or my staff, spread it around and to make sure. I'll give you an example. Here I am on our podcast telling you about Rachel's and The Last Resort. I think they deserve that. They've earned that. It's not for me to say, rising tide, Tim Mooney likes to say, a rising tide raises all boats. And I thought about that, and it's true. And that's another thing I'm proud about with the Chamber of Commerce and my role in that. I don't mean to go down rabbit holes, but a rising tide does raise all boats generally.
Yeah.
If everybody's using the same oar and the same paddle and the same boat. That's a different issue. But all things being equal, I think it's important to help lift up others so that the town as a whole is a more attractive and welcoming place to be. I'm not happy that there's a couple of places out here that are performing horribly, that I hear horrible things about. That's not my place to say who they are.
Right.
That doesn't do any of us any good. I want our guests out here to have a great experience everywhere they go.
I agree.
Right?
I want
Right?
every single place to be the best place.
And that's true of any place you've traveled in the world. You go to some island somewhere, this or that, and you have 4 or 5 great experiences where you're there, you're going back there.
Yeah.
You have 2 out of 5, maybe you're not going back there. And it's the repetition of having a great time somewhere that makes it iconic.
Yeah.
Ultimately over time. So, yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
50 years out here, tons of years owning this restaurant. You've probably seen some crazy, crazy stuff. You've probably got some amazing stories. When I asked you to be on this podcast, give us some of those stories that popped up that you said, I got to talk about this. I got to tell this. This is...
Well, there's some fun things that have gone on. I'll tell you a few. A couple of quick celebrity things that have happened. Again, they're in the. I'm not trying to sell the book because
let's sell the book.
All the proceeds from the book go to the fire department.
Right.
We've raised a lot of money with the book for the fire department.
And the book is great. It's entertaining. It's an easy read. It's fun. You don't want to put it down.
It's just sexy enough.
Yeah.
But in the book, you would read about 3 of these stories. So the first one involves Barbara Corcoran, who people know from Shark Tank. She's a dynamo at 4 feet, 11 and a half inches.
Is she short?
Oh, tiny.
Really? I didn't know that.
You wouldn't believe how tiny she is.
On the show, she looks like she'd be taller.
Yeah,
funny.
So it's a fun story because it's Fire Island related, because what people may not know is Barbara lives out here.
Yeah, she's a local.
I don't want to say which community. I could, but not far from here
right.
is where she lives with her husband. And so by complete coincidence, so every year I do an annual newsletter that's given out at all the tables. And it's just a mostly preseason way of getting people excited for the summer, right? And so I do this newsletter every year for 36 years. It's, by the way, an idea I got from Danny Meyer in New York City at Union Square Cafe. Remember I said, I'm not immune to stealing great ideas. So when I built this place 36 years ago...
I don't think it's stealing. I think it's sharing.
Yeah. And you put your own spin on it. So, again, no rabbit holes, but very quickly, Danny Meyer, Union Square Cafe... Union Square Hospitality Group, one of the best in the world, probably if not the best. I used to go to Union Square Cafe because I lived up the street in Manhattan, and I used to get this newsletter. I'd sit at the bar, I'd read the newsletter, watch him in action, touching every table. He was the guy for me, and still is. And so he did this newsletter, and I said, you know what? When I have my own restaurant, I'm going to make sure to do a newsletter. And I did right out of the jump, and I like to write, so it gives me a bit of something to do. And so the Barbara Corcoran story is every year in the newsletter, I have a section that says, do you know? And it's usually about something about Fire Island. It could be 5 different stories about Fire Island. Real short, quick, did you know that such and such lives in Fire Island? But this year, I happen to put in the newsletter, did you know that Barbara Corcoran is a Fire Islander? I didn't put where she lives. I would never do that. And so she comes in one day on the year that happens to be her year in the newsletter. And she comes in and I see her, and I see the hostess put down the newsletter at her table. And like 20 seconds later, she stands up at her table and she pounds on the table. Where is Scott? I want to see Scott. Scott, get out here right now, in front of the whole restaurant. And she's like this tiny dynamo, and everybody knows who she is because it's recent enough that she's on Shark Tank.
Right,
And, she was famous before that. And so I sheepishly walk over to her table because it's Barbara Corcoran, and I'm thinking, she must have read the newsletter. She's either pissed that she's in it, or she's going to demand that I get rid of it or something. And so she's pounding the table. I walk over there, and she says, Scott, she says, I want a royalty for every one of these newsletters you've handed out all year. And she said it in a way that, it's very intimidating. And I'm thinking, is she serious for more than 2 seconds?
Right.
Anyway, she broke down and started laughing. We laughed about it. I thought that was a cute little anecdote.
That's awesome. She was fun and cool.
She was appreciative, and God forbid, by the way, I had put the town she lived in, which when I was writing it, I'm thinking you can't do that.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I didn't. Otherwise, it might have been a different outcome, right? The second story involves Keith Hernandez, and for people who may not know, as few as there might be, Keith was a legendary Mets baseball player, and he's a broadcaster now. So one evening, Keith comes into the restaurant. He's with our friend Bobby Devine, who owned the China Club in Manhattan. And this was still at a time where Keith was, even more well-known than he might be today. So everybody knew Keith Hernandez. But it turns out that our executive chef at the time, Joe Rago, had often said to me, because I knew he was a rabid Mets fan, one of the biggest on the planet, but even in that subset, huge Keith Hernandez fan, to the point where I'm pretty sure and he may have it to this day, hanging over his bed, he has a poster of Keith Hernandez. That's how big a fan he is. So I'm thinking, what an opportunity here. Nobody knows Keith is here. He's outside having dinner. So I walk over to the table, and my friend Bobby Devine looks at me like, oh, what the fuck do you want? And I said to him, Keith, I have a favor to ask you. And I see Bobby eyeing me like, Scott, don't overstep your bounds here. This better be good, because I'm bringing my friend Keith Hernandez to your fucking restaurant. So I said, and Keith's there with his wife, and Bobby's there with his wife, so it's the four of them. And I said, I lean in and I go, Keith, you wouldn't know this if I didn't tell you, but our executive chef is the single biggest Keith Hernandez fanboy on the planet, besides being a rabid Mets fan. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to trail me into the kitchen behind me so nobody sees it's you. And at the last second, I want you to, while his back is turned, I want you to jump out from behind me and go, where the fuck is my steak? And he goes, I love it. I love it. So he follows me into the kitchen, and Bobby's following like a few steps behind him because they got to see this. And it goes off really well. And Keith jumps out, says what he says. And Joe Rago is like, it's the first time I ever saw him speechless.
Yeah.
He literally just jumped up in the air. And you know how you do that bear hug where you wrap your legs around someone?
Yeah.
He jumps in the air, wraps his arm and leg for a little bit too long of a time. It was like,
He made
it was
awkward.
probably like 5 full seconds, which is like an eternity when
For
some
sure.
dude is like, is making love to you or something, you know what I mean? And the whole kitchen erupted. It made Joe's summer. I mean, it went really well. So that was a cute story. The third story I'll leave you with is, and as I say in the book, this story leads to me deciding that my favorite celebrity guest, because of what he did of all time here, and we've had many, I could give you the list, but not enough A-listers, but some serious B-listers, and even some A-listers, but Mark Messier. So again, for anybody who might not know, Mark Messier, Hall of Fame hockey player, Stanley Cup.
Ranger, right?
Ranger,
Yeah.
Probably one of the most famous Rangers, if not of all time.
Without a doubt.
So again, he comes in, and who is he with? He's with Bobby Devine from the China Club, because that's just life, when you have friends like that. So he's coming in, this is lunch. And we're sitting around, and I was having a great conversation with him, ironically about lacrosse, because I played lacrosse in college, and it just came up, and loved the sport of lacrosse, so we're in this conversation, and I look over his shoulder, and there's a line forming. And we would never do this. We value privacy. Somehow word got out in town, and this is much closer in time to Stanley Cup Mark Messier than anything. So he's like at the height of his fame. And the line is forming, and I'm looking over his shoulder and trying not to get worried about it, but not an unruly line. And who's on the line? Every kid I ever knew out here, and their dad or mom, or dad and or mom, and they appear to all have Sharpies in their hands and something to sign. And this line is building, and I get up from the table, and I go look at the line, and the line is got, it's growing. I have to stop counting. I come back to the table and I say, Mark, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know how this happened, and it's not us, but there's a line behind you, and it's getting bigger. And I said, it looks to me like they want autographs. What do you want to do? You're here to relax, enjoy yourself. And he looked at me and he said, I'm going to sit here and sign every kid's or parent's autograph until they're done, and I don't care if it takes 2 hours. That's what he said to me.
Yeah.
And I was just so jazzed that he would do that, change his day to do that. And I watched him as he chatted with quickly. We organized it so we stopped lunch, changed the day for him, and that kind of made him a superstar in my mind in terms of celebrity guests.
Yeah.
And we've had a bunch of others, but those three come to mind. And then there's a whole category of other people that I've crossed paths with here as strictly as a result of being blessed to have this place and Fire Island in general attracting some notable characters.
Yeah.
And I would say a few stand out. And these, again, I'm not trying to sell the book, but these are in the book.
But buy the book.
Well, yeah, every
It's a good
dollar.
book.
Look, if you buy the book, the money's going to the fire department, so they're getting their money one way or the other. But one of those characters is a cat named Phil Suarez. If you don't know who he is, you need to know who he is. He's a guy who started in. What I love about Phil, and our stories have some similarity in that he didn't start out just being a restaurateur like I have my law stuff going on. But he was a Madison Avenue ad guy, well known for doing the Michael Jackson Pepsi commercials and some big, big deals. And he hooked up with someone who's now quite famous, Jean-Georges, as a young chef. And they went on to and have built, 30 or 40 of the best restaurants in the world. And Phil's a Fair Harbor guy, also
Cool.
known out here for owning and helping create Le Dock in Fair Harbor. So he's got deep connections to Fire Island. Impressive as all hell. A silent, he would never know this, a silent mentor to me, just in the sense that Danny Meyer was someone I looked up to and aspired to be like. On a Fire Island level, Phil Suarez is that guy for me. There's been great documentaries about him. He is one of the coolest fucking guys out there that I know. And a joy for me in writing the book, a little side anecdotal joy is, he asked for a copy. I got to give him a copy. I took pictures with him. He read it. He knows he's in it. And I got to sit down with him at a table in the last couple of years and express to him how much he's meant to me personally that he didn't even know. Here's a guy who touched my life, had no idea. He made an impact for me, to me, and he looked to me like he was, he really, on some visceral level, appreciated that. And you don't get to sit down with a guy like that in ordinary life. He would never have touched my life but for this place and my proximity in that orbit. So Phil Suarez, another guy that comes to mind, absolutely legendary cat. And if you don't know him, you should look him up, is John Staluppi. John, in one way or another, I was helping take care of in a hospitality sense in this building since the day I got here. He is most known, aside from being the #1 auto car vehicle salesman probably in the world, if not the United States. He sidetracked into a whole new industry of building these super yachts, the fastest yachts in the world. Not only the biggest, the best, best in class, etc. They also had to be the fastest turbocharged, and he came up with and designed a jet propulsion system. Anyway, legendary cat.
There's a story about him.
Yeah, there's 2 stories in the book.
Windows shut.
Yeah, so
Cops, mafia.
Yeah, the funny thing about John is everybody seemed to connect him to that world, and whether he was at one point in his life or not, I can't tell. He was always great to us.
I don't want to throw him under the bus, but your son Carson told me to ask about this story specifically.
So again, one story involves him directly, which was, both stories, this is how long I know these people. Both stories involve me when I was bartending here right before I bought it. So I've been taking care of some of these people for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years before I bought it, and then took care of them for another 30 plus. So the one story, which happens to be right out of Goodfellas, before there was ever a thought of the movie Goodfellas, John had a legendary, let's call him protector. I don't use the word henchman, but protector. And this guy's name was Skip. And it was always known that whenever John was here, you don't go near Skip, you don't fuck with Skip. And I always wondered to myself, you know, this Skip guy, he's only about 5'9", 5'10", little overweight. Like, what is so special about this guy that everybody walks on eggshells around him and you just don't even think of talking back to him or getting in his vision or his way? So this is July 4th of, let's say, I don't know, 1986, 1988. But years before I bought the building in 1990 and became Island Mermaid. So I'm working here, and it's Wally's at that point, and it's 4th of July, it's nighttime, town is starting to come alive, and Skip is literally at the bar, like the seat's right next to you there, and he's facing the bay, he's facing me, I'm facing him. I pour him his Grand Marnier on the rocks, still remember what he drank, probably the sign of a pretty good bartender back in the day myself. He's drinking, he's sipping his Grand Marnier, and in walks the town's most notorious bad drunk, who's about well over 6 feet and had hands like garbage can pail tops, a big guy, and not a particularly nice fellow when he had been drinking. So this cat walks up and stands right next to Skip, and I'm thinking to myself, well, this could be interesting at that moment. And it's 4th of July, and the guy's wearing a beautiful American flag t-shirt. And Skip leans forward and looks, this would be to his right, because the guy walked in on his right. He's to my left. I'm looking at them. And Skip leans forward and looks over and goes, "Hey, nice shirt." That's all he said. He was actually, Skip was not a confrontational guy. Could be super nice, super sweet. And with that, Mr. X, let's call him Mr. X, turns his head, not his body yet, turns his head and goes, "Fuck you." And I'm thinking right then, this is not going to go well. This could really turn into something. And then the guy turns back to me, so now they're both facing me. Skip's sipping his drink, and Skip turns to him, again, not yet moving his body, but like a scene out of Goodfellas, Joe Pesci, turns to him and goes, "You know, it's loud in here. It's loud in here. Maybe you didn't hear me. I said, nice shirt." And with that, the guy turns his head back to Skip and goes, "Fuck you." Now I know this is not going to go well, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little
No, you're
distracted. But, so that's the second time the guy has said it, right? So now Skip turns his body to the guy, I guess hoping the guy would turn his body to him. And Skip goes, "Now I know you didn't hear me. Nice shirt." And before the guy could even get the F in "fuck you" out, Skip jumps up and grabs the guy with one arm around the neck and starts pounding his face into the front bar rail.
Gosh.
And now Skip's doing it in a way where he's looking at me and still sipping his Grand Marnier, looking at me going, "Scott, this is the reason people don't fuck with me. I didn't look for this, but I'm going to have some fun now."
Yeah.
And he's pounding the guy's, the whole bar is shaking. He's pounding the guy's face into the front bar rail and pulling his head back so I could see how bloody it is.
Holy shit.
Looking at me in the
Yeah.
eyes, sipping his drink. And after about the, I don't know, 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th time he does that, he just casually tosses the much bigger, gigantic guy like a wet rag into the corner and keeps drinking his drink. The Ocean Beach police run in, and they take one look at Skip. They see the guy in the corner. They don't even talk to Skip. They just come and drag out the wilted, wet, disheveled,
Poor guy, yeah.
gigantic man who's laying in the corner, and nobody spoke a word about it again after that. So that was one story that really, it was...
Being a guy that big, screaming "fuck you," this, that, and then getting your ass beat,
Yeah,
you
it
probably
was-
don't want to talk
it
about
was-
that anymore.
And again, in an instant, I found out why nobody fucks with Skip.
Yeah.
And so The second story is a John story. It's more related to John. It was one night I'm bartending. It was a different year, probably earlier than that first story. It doesn't matter. And I look out back behind me, and John had come with the Octopussy. Just to educate people, John built every boat he ever built was named after a James Bond movie or James Bond title or whatever, 007, this and that. So the Octopussy's out back, and it's the evening, it's dark out, and John's here with his crew, and I look out back, and it's literally like Baghdad war zone. And by that I mean 2 helicopters circling over the boat with searchlights on. Every agency you ever saw that had initials, FBI, ATF, DEC, every agency, every agent from every agency, there had to be 40 people out there, some with flak jackets and machine guns. And then I look and I see there's like frogmen in suits, divers. And this is all happening right out back behind me in the back of that window where his boat's parked.
Yeah.
And I look over at John. He's in here, and he's cool as a cucumber, not even flinching. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. They're about to board your boat. And they did board his boat. He walks out the door, walks up to the guy in charge. There was one guy, FBI. You knew he was in charge.
Yep.
And shakes the guy's hand as if they knew each other. Hey, good to see you. I'll be inside. Go do your thing. Comes inside. They're out there for like a half hour, 40 minutes.
He knew he was all good.
It's like SWAT plus, right? Nothing, lit up. And they come off the boat. Now they got to go apologize to him because they found nothing. And the interesting part of that story is John didn't raise his voice. At the end, when they came to apologize for him, he's shaking their hands. No harm, no foul.
Yeah.
And deep down he was thinking, you rat bastards.
Right.
You had to embarrass me. Anyway,
But
so
he
I
played
learned,
it cool.
I learned a little something about that guy that night. And he came back in, handed everybody a $100 bill and said, let's roll.
Yeah.
They left, and it was like it never happened. A tornado for like an hour, and that was a pretty memorable story.
It's amazing.
With him. So those are some of the fun stories in the book that I think are worth people maybe hearing about.
Definitely.
Phil Suarez, John Sloopy. There are others. Little story in the book about a guy named Giovanni. I don't even know if you know Giovanni. So CJ's has been around a long time.
I know of him. I don't know.
So
I've seen pictures. But
the first person I ever met the night I stayed here as a 16-year-old, that first night I got the job, we walked in from where we were resting under someone's house in Atlantique. The first cat I run into that's willing to talk to me as a 16, 17-year-old kid with my friends is this guy who I later came to know as Gio, with the blue cap, with the feathered hat. He was little with his dog, and he's out in front of CJ's. And I struck up a conversation with him, and he started treating me like an adult right off the bat, which I thought was pretty cool, because at that age, you're not necessarily not an adult, but certainly adults don't necessarily want to have a conversation with you. And I went on over the years to have a really lovely relationship with him. He became a bit of a mentor in some respects. He's the guy who created CJ's, was named after his son, Christopher John, which I don't even know if you know why it's called CJ's.
I didn't know that.
His son was Christopher John. And so Gio's another cat that I think has been forgotten by some of the next generation people.
Yep.
So Phil Suarez, John Sloopy, Giovanni, they're in the book. I thought it was worth people knowing about them.
Yeah.
There's many others. We haven't gotten to Goldie. I don't know that you're necessarily, this podcast followers would want to know about a guy named Goldie.
Right.
Stories are endless. They're in the book. If you want to read about some of the history here, I mean, there was a time where this place, in its infancy, when it was Goldie's for many years, at its first incarnation of an establishment, the regulars here were Marilyn Monroe, Ethel Merman, Art Carney, who you may know from the Honeymooners, Norton.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Carl Reiner, Anne Bancroft, Rocky Graziano, Dudley Moore, Burt Bacharach. Again, I'm giving you some dated names, but this was a hopping joint in the 60s and early 70s, created by, Louis Goldie Hawkins, who was essentially the first openly gay businessman in Fire Island, but was a foul-mouthed Southern raconteur like you've never seen. He was a force to be reckoned with, and those were the people who came here and sang here and ate here. So I would say, if we had the time, I would tell you some stories about Goldie, also in the book, that are just unbelievably memorable. I got the pleasure of meeting him when I had him back here to play 2 sold-out piano shows.
Yeah.
Turns out I thought I was getting a piano player, and I wasn't. It wasn't about the piano. It was about the man, the celebrity.
The show.
He could stop you in your tracks with just one look, which he did that night for me. Just a memorable character that of epic proportions that I hope some Fire Islanders may not forget about, because it's been a while.
Throughout the industry, you've been in this for long enough. You've worked every angle of the industry. What's the biggest tip you've ever gotten or you've ever seen somebody get?
I would say the one that stands out for me is there was a server we had, Brian Layton. It's not a story in the book, but he's a character who I'm still friends with. Early years, and we had a regular guy from the summer club. Doesn't matter who he was, and he gave Brian a $1,000 tip on a $1,000 check, which I thought was pretty cool. Certainly for Brian, but I, monetarily, I try to keep my nose out of. I only know about that one because it was a big deal, and Brian brought it to my attention.
That's cool.
These young people, they earn everything they get.
Throughout your time in the industry, unfortunately, I'm sure you've had to do some firing, and you've worked at enough places. I'm sure you had to have been fired.
Yeah.
Can you give us any of those?
So, let me start with the one and only time in my life. It has a Fire Island connection to it that I've ever been fired from a job, one time. And you know how hard I work, so it's probably
extremely hard.
It's probably hard for you to imagine any legitimate circumstance under which I'm getting fired, right? You know me.
Yeah, and you're the hardest worker in the building.
I do not get fired, but I did get fired once. It's a cute little interesting story because it involves Fire Island. So 2 guys from Fire Island take a liking to me, and they're opening a bar in New York City. Legendary bar that it became. It's called El Rio Grande. And if you haven't heard of it, it's just because of your age. But any Manhattan person who's, let's say, over 40 knows about El Rio Grande. 3rd Avenue happens to be not far from where I live now in the city. So Bob Farley and Jack Troy, 2 guys, Seaview and Ocean Bay Park, had a long history of the bar business in New York. And they opened El Rio Grande, this Mexican place. It's Tex-Mex. Okay. It's got 2 sides to it. You walk through the kitchen. You literally, as a guest, walk through the kitchen to get from the Mexico side to the Texas side.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's like the Rio Grande River. They've done this. They've set this up so it's Texas meets Mexico. Pretty cool place.
That's fun, yeah.
And they asked me to be part of it in the sense that they asked me to come help open up the bar with another guy, Wild Bill Shields. Anyway, longer story short, they hired me. And they hired me in part because they love the Fire Island connection and they want me to help grow the Fire Islander base in Manhattan and vice versa, right? What's better than that?
Yeah.
I already have a base here. And the irony of why I get fired, as I'm about to tell you, is because of that connection. So they hire this GM who herself went on to have some career in Manhattan. Joyce, may she rest in peace. And one day a big group of Fire Islanders comes in, including a legendary guy himself, Abe Horowitz. They used to call him Santa Claus. I don't know if you remember Abe, but so Abe comes in and it's his birthday. And Abe's a big Fire Island presence. And he comes in with an entourage of Fire Island people, Arlene Jaffe and a bunch of other people who you may know about.
Of course.
And they sit down. They're going to have dinner, and they say hello to me, whatever. And towards the end of dinner, they come up to the bar, and they go, Scott, would you join us for dessert? We're going to bring out a cake. Please come sit with us. And I didn't really think about it. I'm thinking, it's part of why I'm here. Sure, I'll do that. And I go over, I join them for cake, and shortly thereafter, there's a tap on my shoulder. And as remarkable as it sounds, the assistant GM says to me, I got to see you in the office. I'm thinking, oh, it must be important. Okay, I have not, like, I didn't do any, you know. I go in the office, and he says to me, Joyce wants you to know that you probably didn't read section blah, blah, blah of the employee handbook, but there's no sitting at tables with guests. And we have to let you go. And I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty remarkable. I was like beyond dumbfounded. You got to let me go. I thought you brought me here to like be part of
Make this
like,
connection.
make
Yeah, I
this
just
connection.
brought all these people in. Yeah.
As it turned out, Joyce was she had some particulars about her life, and I guess she had not taken a liking to me. I don't know what it was. She played for the other team or something, but she just didn't like me, and I didn't know it until that moment. And it's the only job I've ever gotten fired from. But the facts speak for themselves. Anyway, Jack Troy and Bob Farley were not happy with her decision, but she was so tough they couldn't. The die was cast. I was done. Even though my friends owned the joint, I was out. I've been at it a long time, so consequently, I have had to, as you described, fire a number of people over the years. But to me, there's a big difference between letting someone go and firing them. And I just want to explain that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, like I said earlier, there's a lot of things we can teach, skills we can teach, but attitude and work ethic are hard to teach. And sometimes we make a mistake and we hire someone who may not be a great fit, and that's on us. There's a big difference between letting someone go because the hospitality industry is not for them.
Right. The puzzle piece didn't fit. Yeah.
It's not a good fit for them. They belong in retail, or they belong in sales,
a desk job, right? Yeah.
Whatever it is,
something else,
or they belong nowhere, whatever it is. And so that's on us. You shouldn't have to fire many people if you hire right. But over the years, it has happened. On the other hand, there's been several times where I've had to fire someone because they deserved it. They stepped over a certain line, and there are a couple of things that are red lines. Lying and stealing are probably among the top tier.
Yep.
So those are, you can't walk back from that.
Absolutely not.
And so, I've reluctantly, it's never fun, but when I do it, I will tell you this, it's very important because it can be again, this is perfect that we're having this conversation because that incident in which I got fired was very scarring to me.
Yeah.
I had to live
Stuck
with that.
you, yeah.
I had to live with that for years. So having been fired, probably they did me a favor because now when I have to do it, I always remember to do it in a way that's not just as uplifting as possible, but explains to people in a way they can really understand why it's happening.
And they can try to grow from that. They can learn from that.
Yes, and they can move on from it and have great productive lives. So,
yeah.
The time I got fired that I described was so scarring to me. It actually helped me now in my role as being a better boss, a better person to fire someone. Because when I do it, if you get called into my office more than once or twice, something's up because I've already spent the time with you to explain what's going on that's not working,
right,
and how we need you to kind of like fix it. So if you're getting that call to go in there, and many times I'll try to do it with someone else in the room, someone else I trust, for legitimate legal reasons and ease the tension.
Yeah.
And so I always try to do it in the most, not only just humane way, but in a way that's not going to scar someone and is going to give them potentially something to think about,
right,
so that it doesn't happen to them again, which is not the chance I got back then. So it's interesting.
Get a chance to grow from it.
We tackle both those subjects belong together.
That's
what
awesome.
happened to me, and how I approach it now with others, I think
And using that, I want to play a little fun game with you. It's easy. All you have to say is fired or hired. I'm going to give you a situation, and you're going to tell me, would that person be fired or hired?
Okay.
For you, there's no right or wrong answer, right? So somebody who arrives late but works harder than everyone.
Arriving late in and of itself is not a fire. It's a talk to, it's a find out as best you can what's going on, why it keeps happening. If it continues to happen after a number of times and it's affecting other people's morale, I always judge behavior by, is this a cancer I can cure, or is this a cancer I can fix, right?
Yeah.
Not to be too negative about things.
That's real.
But
For sure.
so that's a fixable, especially if they show signs of being an otherwise terrific standout employee.
Yeah.
Very fixable.
It's good because the next one I was going to say is somebody who's extremely skilled, a great service industry worker, but damages team morale.
That's most
Fired or hired?
That's most likely a fire.
Yeah.
Because you have to look at the bigger picture. And I swear to God, Mark, this is something I tell everybody in staff meetings, not every staff meeting.
Right.
I tell them everybody here, including myself, is expendable. I'm a guy who fired his own sister. I might have to repeat that. I'm a guy who fired his own sister for behavior that I thought was not. She's my sister. She's
Right.
a great person, but I didn't think, based on what was going on at the time, it was affecting morale. It was affecting others in a way that was not fixable.
Yeah.
Because in her moment, and this is after she worked here many years. This is not just year one. I had to make the break. So everyone's expendable. My own family, myself, and if I'm going to hold myself and my family to that standard, then I'm holding y'all to that standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably a fireable.
Somebody who's inexperienced but constantly wants to learn.
Oh, that's a keep. There's dozens and dozens of examples of people we hired that at the beginning I thought, I don't know if this is going to work out, and over time with mentoring and effort and compassion, they went on to become superstars. So that's not a fire. That's a keep.
Somebody who will cover any shift but has a bad attitude.
I don't like that one. It's on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
If you're willing to cover every shift, but attitude is just about everything. You know,
I agree. Yeah.
I talked about culture before. The bad attitude, and I'll cut that out quickly. That's one that's going to affect other people. No, that's probably a fire.
How about somebody who's excellent with guests but terrible with coworkers?
Again, I come from the Danny Meyer school of thinking, because I've heard him say this many times. My staff comes first, and my guests come second. Let me explain why. I believe that if you take great care of your staff, they in turn will take great care of your guests. And what do I mean by that? Have you ever gone out to a place and you look around and the staff is sort of downtrodden and doesn't seem to be upbeat and happy? You know something's going on internally, which is not good.
Yeah.
Conversely, if you walk into a place and the staff is upbeat, super friendly, right from the get-go is engaging, they're going to engage with guests and everybody's going to get lifted. So getting back to your question, great with guests, bad with coworkers, that's a fire.
That's a fire, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm completely like that team morale. Like that means everything. That's bringing the guests' energy up when they walk in. Like you said,
Yeah, it's
like
one of the legs of the chair, right? We
without a
talked
doubt.
about a culture.
100%.
One of the four legs of the chair.
Yep. And some hot takes. How do you feel about the customer is always right?
I always start with that proposition. I try to end with that proposition. There are times that they're not, but it's all in how you communicate it. You don't want to take a bad situation to make it worse. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's got to be a bare minimum. I think I don't call them customers. First of all, I hate that word. Just like I don't call security bouncers. There's certain words to me that have meaning, Yeah, they're guests.
Yeah.
They're here in your living room or what is their home for the day. They're your guests. So the guest is always right. I try to operate as if that's true, but it's certainly not always true. We all know that.
Yeah.
There's some people that come in with a gigantic chip. Listen, I've had people that have. I've had at least a dozen times, if not more, many more, where a guest will act up at a table, and others at the table will approach me on the way to the bathroom saying, "He or she does this everywhere we go. Please don't be
They're
offended."
embarrassed, yeah.
And we kind of laugh at that because we know it. You can tell if they're doing that in your place and only your place, or they carry that
Yeah.
with them, and it becomes pretty apparent.
Right.
And I try to dance around it as much as you can. If there does come a point, and it happens, it's happened, then you got to go. You got to leave. You got to leave.
Yeah.
And I had one recently, just a week or two ago. Big group, family. I don't understand how a family can operate where the parents are actually encouraging their kids to throw food across the table. Not discouraging it, but joining in with the fun. And after the first one or two times, and I make a pass, and as politely as I can, sort of prompt them to being like, it's not at your house, and there's other people being affected like this, and then F-bombs are being dropped, and it's parents. The culture we have now, and I touched on it before when I said one of the changes in the industry is that bad behavior is on the rise in restaurants.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about it. So yeah, that's intolerable, and we won't tolerate it. Once
Yeah.
it starts affecting other guests,
Without a doubt.
you're
Yeah.
out. You're
That
out.
affects my business. That affects the money. That affects
Yeah.
everybody's
But
morale. Keep going to morale.
Once it
but
starts affecting other guests, you're out.
Yep.
You're out.
I'm with
Done.
you.
No questions asked.
Yeah. Some rapid fire questions I'm going to give you. You just got to pick one or the other. Owner or bartender?
I like the fact that it's both. I can't say both. When you're a bartender, you don't bring the problems home with you, generally. You come and you go. I like the challenge of being an owner. I loved being a bartender. I still like doing it. Although, frankly, that's another thing. Back when I was rocking this bar, there were two ingredients. It was vodka and orange juice. It was rum and Coke. Now the drinks that these guys are called upon to make. I watched Mike Bracco at that window and others. The type of drinks that people are ordering, frankly, I think has gotten a little out of control, and there's too many choices.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you pride yourself and you're going to go to Sweet Jane, right? And you're going to go see Joe at Sweet Jane.
Cocktail bar,
And it's a
right.
cocktail bar, and you're going there for that. It's gotten tough. I don't know how these bartenders do it with all the mixology going on, but I'll take owner if I have to answer just one.
Owner over bartender. Ocean Beach now or Ocean Beach then?
Again, I would say Ocean Beach now for a couple of reasons, and Ocean Beach then for the opposite of those couple of reasons.
You got to pick one. The pressure's on.
Ocean Beach now because I'm still alive.
Locals or first timers?
I'd have to give the slight edge to a first timer, but let me explain. Not because locals or anything.
I would agree with you.
I like the
It's a
idea of
challenge.
making a new friend.
Yeah.
Of making a first timer into a local. I like that challenge, so I give the slight edge to that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. A weekday or the weekend?
Thursday and Sunday are my favorite days. They're kind of like shoulder seasons to the weekend.
Yeah.
I like to build up on Thursdays to the weekend, especially if the forecast is good. I love that energy. And I also like Sundays because it's more of a local vibe. The crowds have sort of, for the most part, are dissipating. Sundays around 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night is that golden hour to me is the peak of the week, especially if it's been a good week. So that's the only way I can answer that.
Would you prefer a calm crowd or a chaotic, wild crowd?
I like it right at the edge. There's that edge that you know you're on,
Yeah.
which is a frenetic vibe, but it hasn't happened yet. It's kind of like foreplay. It hasn't happened yet.
Yes.
But you know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's what I love. That pre chaotic moments
before it gets
where
crazy.
you know it's going to be lit, it's going to be fire, it's going to be turnt, whatever the kids say. The Riz is coming out.
Yes.
I don't have to mog anybody. You know. Yeah, you guys thought I wasn't up on the current lingo. I got 2 young adult male boys. So, in any event, I would say that pre-chaotic moment is where I like to be.
And then kind of wrapping everything up. We're at the Mermaid. You guys got a lot of stuff going on here throughout the week.
Yep.
Give us, you got from Wisdom Wednesdays to the Folly.
I get it.
You got it
I
all.
get it. So I started out with this idea of when I started my journey in creating the restaurant, I wanted to raise the bar, not the bar, but raise the bar on hospitality and dining. Again, it's in the book, but when I came out here at first, every restaurant was giving away a crappy wooden bowl of salad for free with dinner. That's a metaphor, if you will, for the state of the culinary experience out here. You got a shitty piece of bread and a crappy wooden bowl of salad to start your meal. Whether you wanted it or not, whether you paid for it or not, you were getting it. And I was thinking, wow, what a waste of money and time. And so my idea was, let me elevate, because I lived in Manhattan. I was going to Union Square Cafe. I was going to Metropolis, Steve Hansen's place. I was going to all these great restaurants. And I'm thinking, let me see if I could do a little bit, just a little bit. I don't pretend to be Union Square, but let me see if I can help elevate the food game, right? That was my goal. Little did I realize that all these years later, I was able to, I think we could say, do that. I think I can take credit for doing some of that. But elevating the bar game was like not part of the original plan, but has become a big part of it. So yeah, Tuesdays, I don't want to say standing room only, but for 25 years now, our Tuesdays are just magnificent. And it's a type of entertainment that's enjoyed by a different segment than, say, a Wednesday or a Thursday. The newest big hit is the burlesque on Thursdays. I'm doing something which you'll have to go on our Insta or Google us.
You got to just come here. You got to just experience
see it to believe it.
It's quite the show.
And again, I didn't invent it. It's going on in New York for years. Just nobody had the, I don't want to say foresight, but nobody had the energy to make it happen and take the risk. So taking risks, you throw 20 ideas. We have something we call game changers here. They're called Scott Game Changers. So rather than sitting back, because somebody's always coming up, I insist that we insist that every year we have some game changers. Could be little, could be something that makes service easier, could be something that's curbside appeal related, game changers. Could be menu, could be big or small. We've had big ones, we've had small ones, but game changers every year. And so, like for example, this year we have a small game changer, but it's, you throw 20 out there, if 3 hit, you're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
This Mermaid Mahjong is going to be a hit. I can already tell. It's Tuesdays from 11 to 1, and so it's already getting its roots, right?
Yeah.
So we've done them, and over the years, and years ago, the burlesque became one of those game changers, and it's still in the arsenal. Vicky's got Wisdom Wednesdays.
Yep.
And it's, again, gives us a great chance to connect with the
Monday,
locals.
you guys doing?
Monday's been the only tough one because of darts. Darts is its own thing.
But you guys do something Mondays, no?
Yeah, I did this axe throwing thing.
Okay, yeah.
Mondays is a work in progress because it's one of the... But again, the other 6 nights, it's rare having those 4 legs of the chair include 6 nights of top shelf, top respected entertainment. So this might be a good place to stop, but come on down, visit. You'll be wrapped and cloaked in the best hospitality, I think, in Fire Island, and certainly that we can produce. Come on down. Let's say hello. Let's make some new friends. All about adding to the base and keeping the legacy going.
Yeah.
We haven't really touched on legacy. I'll just touch on it for a second.
Please do, yeah.
Because I'm on the back nine. I mean, just take one look and you know I'm on the back nine. I don't know what that means, but I'm not on the front nine, right? So to me, it's all about legacy. I would say, to me, the most important things are, if my legacy is nothing more than two things: the deep, wonderful connections I have with my two boys who have worked side by side with me here since they're 12. If my legacy is that he was not only a terrific dad, but a great businessman who did good things for the community. Listen, I know we make a lot of noise and garbage and all that stuff. Believe me, I know. But we always have the community in mind, always. We always try to raise a lot of money for things, donate.
You guys do tons of good fundraisers here.
Yeah,
you guys are always...
Yeah, so giving back to the community is very important.
Yep.
Because I know the community puts up with a lot based upon what we do. When you are the epicenter of a town or you know, one of the most or more popular, you're gonna rub some people the wrong way, and we do, and I get it. But we try to make up for that in other ways. So if that's part of my legacy, the dad thing, and being a very active businessman, helping the Chamber of Commerce, that's the best I can hope to do.
Yeah.
You're always going to have your detractors, but I think the people that know me and take the time to let me get to know them know and understand that it's really important to me what my legacy will be. What will people think and say about me when I'm not here? And so, I think that's probably a decent place to...
From my point of view, I can attest to everything you're saying. You're doing a great job at it. You're leaving an amazing legacy. You have an amazing place.
Thanks.
A great staff. I love hanging out here.
Thanks.
You're on Fire Island. Come by the Mermaid. It is literally, it's my favorite place to hang out when I'm off work. This is my second home out here.
It's not taken for granted. It's appreciated as much as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And I love also on the side the fun relationship we're having and will continue to have.
You've always been an amazing guy to me,
it's
to
not
my
all
family.
that often you get to hang out with the sexiest man alive. So
no, you've always done so good by us. I couldn't appreciate you more for everything you've done by me and just everything that you've created.
And thanks for letting me be part of this growing opportunity you've created for the hospitality industry in general.
Yeah,
I think
it's a lot of fun.
It was needed, and I see what y'all are doing.
Scott, thank you again. Big shout out to the Island Mermaid for having us film in here. Bigger shout out to Scott for being the best boss, the best guest, the best guy. Make sure to tune in every week. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok. If you're a bartender that wants to get on this podcast, shoot us a DM. We'd love to hear your war stories. Make sure to keep your weekends banging and not boring. And I'll catch you next week. Peace.